Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Kendrick. Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a fantastic day. This is the point of the season now where what these teams are, what their record is essentially what the teams are, right? We know who the top teams are, we know who the teams are going to be awful are, and we know who the teams are in the middle, who might be able to make a push for a wild card spot. There may be like a few players away. They were a few unlucky plays away from the record being a little bit different. At this point in time, we know what the teams are. There's no more hiding, there's no more frauds, there's no more teams sneaking up on us. We know exactly what these teams are at this point, and yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Let's get into this. So I want to talk about a few things today. I want to talk about second chances as it pertains to the NFL. I want to talk about some Trevor Lawrence news when it comes to him getting COVID and as it pertains to his future in college football and the NFL. Moving forward, the Patriots are reportedly fielding trades for everyone on the roster, as they should. I believe there's another team in the NFL that should be taking this exact approach as well. And we're going to look at the Panthers and Falcons moving forward as from their Thursday Night Football game, their seasons as a whole so far, and their teams moving forward. So let's go and get into this. So, I'm a believer in second chances. I believe everybody does deserve a second chance, but there is a caveat, right? There are certain things people do in business, in their job field, whatever the case may be. There's certain incidents that might make you a little bit more hesitant to actually want to give that person a second chance, right? Like someone like, you could say, Baker Mayfield with the Browns. He's been a bit immature. A guy like Dwayne Haskins in Washington. He's been a bit immature. They don't really have any off-the-field stuff since they have entered college. Obviously, Baker Mayfield, he had this stuff in college and everything, but they get into the NFL, they haven't had any off-the-field trouble, no legal trouble, no, nothing like that. No, nothing. It's just that they've been a bit immature. So I believe that these two players could easily get a second chance at another stop if that is what their future ended up dictating, right? If the Browns go ahead and trade Baker Mayfield or he becomes a free agent after this next season, if the Washington football team trades Dwayne Haskins, I definitely believe they deserve a shot somewhere else. They didn't hurt anybody, they didn't harass anybody, nothing like that. It's just they're young kids, they said some things, a bit of a lack of judgment. Nothing too serious. I believe they deserve a second chance, right? Outside of the NFL, in business, the same thing applies. But let's just say, even if it was a young person, right? Let's just say you have a young person, they're working at the first job, and instead the trouble that they've gotten into revolves around HR. And it revolves around harassment. It revolves around making people uncomfortable, or even outside of their work, right? Just in their average everyday life, all of a sudden they have some lawsuits against them. They have some restraining orders against them. They have certain things like that then get back to the work. These are things that they then have to mark down on their resume. Their work might be very hesitant to want to keep them around. Other businesses who are actually in their field of work, the big time corporations, these businesses especially that might have a big public following, they're going to be a lot more hesitant to want to hire them, because if it does get out to the public, people aren't gonna really support that. The business doesn't want that kind of bad PR, and so they're gonna be a lot more hesitant to hire them, whereas a place like a fast food restaurant or your local convenience store, they don't really care. They just want people there. They'll fire you, no problem. They'll replace you, no problem. It's a lot harder to do that in bigger businesses. So Colin Kaepernick has done none of these things. And yet he hasn't gotten a second chance that he rightfully deserves from the NFL. And let me be very, very clear. He doesn't even deserve to be on his second chance. He shouldn't have lost his position in the NFL in the first place. He shouldn't have. If you disagree with me, you didn't watch him play, you don't watch the game now, you don't see that his play style is literally the NFL right now. Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, so on and so forth. All these quarterbacks, the immobile passers in the league are going away. Phillip Rivers is going away. Eli Manning is gone. Peyton Mannings are gone. These older in the pocket quarterbacks are I think in order for anyone to be a stationary pocket quarterback anymore, they're going to need to be like Drew Brees. I mean, really, they're gonna, like Tua. Tua is going to need to be Drew Brees to succeed in the NFL because he's not very mobile, and he's shorter, and he's more of a pocket guy. He needs to be Drew Brees. Those days, I don't think are really here anymore. Colin Kaepernick fits the NFL now more than ever. Now, he has a show coming out on Netflix called Colin in Black and White, and I can't wait for it. The director's phenomenal, award winner, and Kaepernick, they have cast an actor to basically play young Kaepernick. I can't wait to see it. Basically, what this show is going to be is it's going to tell the story of Colin Kaepernick from his youth up to now to when he is exiled from the NFL and essentially takes up a career in politics and activism. It's kind of crazy. I looked up Colin Kaepernick a few days ago, and now when you look him up, it doesn't say athlete, it doesn't say quarterback under his title, it says, like, American activist. That is crazy. That is what Colin Kaepernick is now. They don't even consider him an athlete, a former athlete. His now main title is activist. And I'm not going to say that's bad, because Colin Kaepernick has done a lot for it. But I do think it's interesting. With this series coming out, I really, really hope that people in America and all over the world who have access to this, I really hope they watch it. And I hope it really tells the story of Colin Kaepernick. Now more than ever, people are more okay with the kneeling during the anthem. People understand. People are on the side of Black Lives Matter, even though the country is still very, very divisive. People understand Colin Kaepernick's position now more than ever. And I had to listen for about a month and a half to even 3 months. I had to listen to these head coaches and all these anonymous sources and everything talk about how, people, they want Colin Kaepernick. Oh, these teams, they want to bring him in. The Chargers. Anthony Lynn came out and said, Colin Kaepernick is on our workout list. Did he ever get a workout? I don't remember. Pete Carroll, he said I wish we brought Kaepernick in. I wish we had signed him when we brought him in. Do you? You know you can sign him now, right? You do realize he's better than Geno Smith, right? You still haven't signed him. And there's a bunch of other teams that are really struggling at quarterback right now. The Broncos. They started the game with Brett Rippon. Brett Rippon started the game this year. Joe Flacco started some games for the Jets. I'm not going to say that Kaepernick would have looked any better with them, but at least he's more mobile. He can make some things happen with his legs. The Jets roster is terrible right now, but I believe he would have looked better than Joe Flacco. There are some teams out there that are a quarterback injury away from being abysmal. The Dallas Cowboys. You're telling me they couldn't use Colin Kaepernick? Now, I'm sure Jerry Jones does not want Kaepernick anywhere near his team, but they couldn't have even done that. I even look at Minnesota. Minnesota missed a perfect opportunity to put so much positive light on them. And I mean, they're a bad team, and I'm not saying Kaepernick would have changed their fortunes and that they would have benched Kirk Cousins for him. I'm not saying any of that. I'm not saying it would have turned their fortunes around. I'm just saying even the look of a Minnesota team signing Colin Kaepernick following what happened there would have been outstanding. It would have looked so great for them. But these teams have let you know how they feel. We are now, what are we into? Are we 7-8 weeks into the season? Towards the quarter pole of the season, or not the quarter pole, towards halfway through the season, and there's nothing. There's nothing. The only news about Colin Kaepernick is revolving around his TV show. That's all. And I think it's such a shame. It's such a shame. This is a country that preaches about second chances. Preaches about the land of opportunity, the land of second and third chances. Where is Colin Kaepernick's second chance? that, by the way, again, he doesn't deserve to be on. He shouldn't be on a second chance. He should just be signed. He should just be worked out. It is ridiculous. I don't get it. I really don't. Well, actually, no, I can't say that. I do get it. I do understand why these businesses have a problem with it. It's because a lot of them were intimidated by Donald Trump, and the owners of these teams, a lot of them are white billionaires who can't relate to Colin Kaepernick's struggle, and a lot of them didn't understand Black Lives Matter, and they didn't understand police brutality, and they thought it was a myth, and it was just players complaining about nothing, and only now have some of them actually started to listen, and actually started to hear everybody, whether they mean it or not. So, I guess I do get it. But I just think it's wrong, and I don't agree. And remember how at the beginning I talked about how you have some people that are immature, they're more prone to get a second chance just because they were immature, they could have grown up and figured things out, as compared to somebody who maybe was actually committing some HR kind of crimes. They were harassing people, whether it be sexual harassment or just making people feel uncomfortable, whether it's in the workplace or outside of the workplace. Antonio Brown has been signed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He has gotten now his third chance. And for those of you who haven't kept track, the Steelers traded him to the Raiders. If you want to go ahead and say that was his second chance, then I guess okay, I don't really consider that to be a second chance necessarily. I just think it's part of business. They went ahead and moved on from him and traded him to the Raiders. The Raiders really wanted him, and so then he was there. And then the Raiders cut him. And then the Patriots went ahead and signed him. That, in my opinion, is his second chance, because the Raiders they did say, we're done with you. You're causing way too much drama. You're not showing up to any of the practices. You're complaining about your helmet. You froze your feet off. What are you doing? You recorded a call with John Gruden and then turned it into like an ad? I mean, it's just ridiculous. The woe is me party was in full effect. And so then the Patriots went ahead and signed him. And all he had to do was stay quiet and not cause any more mischief. And after one game, the Patriots cut him because texts of his came out where he was insulting, I believe it was one of his baby mamas, an ex of his, where in a group chat, he was calling her names and accusing her of just looking for money, calling her a gold digger, and those got out, and so then they released him, and then he made comments about Robert Kraft and his incidents, and this man couldn't keep his mouth shut. And keep in mind, all of these things are documented. It is documented that he was cussing out police, using very vulgar language at police officers. It's documented that he was assaulting, I believe it was a mover, like a dude in a moving van. I believe that was supposed to be there for him. He was assaulting him. It is reported a woman, I think it was his former trainer, has accused him of sexually assaulting her and I believe raping her. I believe there's an artist who was painting a mural in his home, and this is just kind of I'm not going to get too much into this. I think she accused him of like making her uncomfortable. She was painting. He came out and he was wearing like only a towel, and nothing happened, but he came out wearing a towel and like asked her a question or something like that. I don't know the whole story, but that didn't sound like too big of a deal to me. But he's throwing things off his balcony. He's recording conversations without letting the person know. He's freezing his feet, complaining about helmets. I mean, this guy was doing so much and really turned the league off from him. Nobody wanted him. And then it gets to the point where he's just waiting for the punishment that's supposed to come down from the league, because whatever this legal trouble is with Antonio Brown, I still don't think it's been settled yet. And so the Buccaneers finally go ahead and sign him. He now is on his third chance, in my opinion. Now, Bruce Arians has made it very, very clear that he is on thin ice. He's on the thinnest of ice. If he takes one wrong step, they are not going to hesitate to cut him. Bruce Arians had been with him with Pittsburgh. I think their offensive coordinator Leftwich had also been with him in Pittsburgh. They know Antonio Brown. They know he's supremely talented, but they know the kind of guy he is. They paid attention to the headlines. Hell, there's reports that the Seahawks let it be known that they were interested in him so that they could have an excuse to not sign him. They were hoping another team would rush to sign Antonio Brown so that they didn't have to. The league has kind of made it known that they aren't putting up with these kind of characters. Earl Thomas is still jobless, and he just played last season. He just played a full season. Antonio Brown didn't. He played a game, and then he was gone. And everything he did is way worse than what Earl Thomas did. Earl Thomas, he punched a teammate. You know, he punched a teammate. It's happened before. Michael Thomas punched a teammate, and obviously there's the trouble that's going on there with the Saints and everything, but like Earl Thomas has at least recently played, and what he did is not up to sexual harassment. They have given Antonio Brown a third chance. The NFL has given him a third chance. And I just think it's very, very strange to me that someone with all the baggage Antonio Brown has can get a second and a third chance in the NFL, given everything that he's done, but yet someone like Colin Kaepernick can't. I just think that's it's disheartening, I guess is what I would say. It's very, very disheartening. But it goes to show what the NFL is. The NFL is a league where if you have talent, if you're good, if you're actually even better than good, if you are elite, then teams will go ahead and make concessions. Teams will do things, they'll ignore certain things, they'll do whatever they can to get you on their team. That is how the NFL works. And it just kind of, it is what it is. And I want to be clear about this. I'm not saying Antonio Brown didn't deserve a third chance. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is I just find it very, very hard to believe that someone with Antonio Brown's history can get a second and third chance, whereas somebody who stood up for black lives, who stood against police brutality, I think we're all against police brutality, or at least the idea of it, aren't we? Isn't that something we can all agree is bad? Police shouldn't be brutalizing people. Can we agree with that? Can we all agree that racism is bad? Can we all agree that the history of the way Americans have treated black people is bad? Can we all can we agree with that? Well, that's what Colin Kaepernick was basically fighting for. He was fighting, saying, hey, this treatment is not right. They're still not being treated right. This is supposed to be the land of the free and equal. I thought we were all created equal. Why aren't we being treated it? That is what Colin Kaepernick was trying to bring attention to. And the NFL said, ugh. And then he's gone. The NFL, they winced at it. They winced at what he was doing. They felt very uncomfortable. They gave in to Trump. They gave in to all the people out there who didn't understand it. And at this point in time, America is more on Colin Kaepernick's side. I think if a team was to sign him right now, it would be huge and people would instantly tune into whatever that team's next game was just to see him on the sideline. But the NFL they're still not on the right side of history. And they won't be. If Colin Kaepernick legitimately does not ever see an NFL field again, they will never be on the right side of history with this. I think even if he was to get signed, they probably still wouldn't be. It'd be a nice story. It'd be a little bit of like a redemption story. But I still think in the grand scheme of things, they wouldn't be on the right side. I just think it's a bummer. And I'm saying that about Colin Kaepernick. I think even for Earl Thomas. I mean, you're telling me nobody wants Earl Thomas. Are teams is there something I don't know about Earl Thomas? Is there a notion in the locker rooms that he's a bad guy? I know that his time in Baltimore wasn't exactly smooth, showing up late to things and him punching a teammate and missed cues and on the defense, everything. I get it. You know, he didn't have a great first year there in Baltimore, his one and only season there. It wasn't outstanding, but he was still a decent player. They were still the best team in the AFC, supposedly, at least record-wise. Are teams that turned off by him? Is he that bad of a guy? Doesn't have any of the history of Antonio Brown. I haven't seen a sexual assault case. I think he cheated on his wife, but and it's bad, but I don't know, people, they've done it before. You know, it's a terrible thing. I'm not condoning it at all. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not condoning it, but I'm just saying, he cheated. You know, his wife is the one who held him at gunpoint. It wasn't like he held the gun. I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong, but this is the way the NFL is. When you have talent and you can help a team win, that's all that matters. And Tom Brady can come out and he can say that he wanted Antonio Brown on the Buccaneers because he wants to help him and he wants to, because his upbringing was different than his, and Tom Brady had privileges and Antonio Brown probably didn't have. He can go ahead and say that all he wants. I don't believe it for a second. The only reason why Antonio Brown is on the Buccaneers and why Tom Brady wanted him on the Buccaneers is because he knows how talented he is. And he knows Antonio Brown can help him win a Super Bowl. That is the only reason why. He's not running some Make-A-Wish foundation. He's not trying to help people. He brought Antonio Brown there because he can help him win. If Antonio Brown had the skill of Nelson Aguilar, or even, I'm trying to think of just someone worse. Just name the worst receiver you can really. If he had the skill set of N'Keal Harry, there is no way Tom Brady would be pining for Antonio Brown to come and be a Buccaneer. There just wouldn't be. He wouldn't want to, quote, help him, right? He wouldn't want to help him better his life because he had a different upbringing. It's because he can help him win, and that's just that. So I look forward to Colin Kaepernick's new show. If you haven't seen anything about it, definitely look it up. Colin in Black and White. I can't wait to see it. Anyways, coming up next, we're going to talk some Trevor Lawrence. He came down with COVID. His team did win their last game, but I want to talk about Trevor Lawrence's future as it pertains to college and the NFL. That coming up next.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. Last segment talked about second chances as it pertains to the NFL. I think it is a shame that Colin Kaepernick hasn't gotten a second chance that he doesn't even deserve to be on, because he shouldn't need a second chance based on the reason as to why it is he isn't in the NFL. Whereas Antonio Brown, who has these harassments out against him and allegations of rape and sexual assault, and then the things that are documented, him cussing out police officers, him assaulting somebody, I think there's burglary, him throwing stuff off his balcony, almost hitting people, endangerment. I mean, this guy has done so much, and yet he's on his third chance now with the Buccaneers, and he might be on a very thin leash, but he is still there. Colin Kaepernick's leash was broken, burned, thrown away, everything. It just doesn't even exist anymore, and I just think it's a shame. So let's go on, let's get into this. So Trevor Lawrence ended up testing positive for COVID. He missed Clemson's last game. It was close there for a bit, but Clemson ended up pulling out the victory, and their freshman quarterback looked really, really good. Trevor Lawrence will at some point in time be back this season. I do question, however, whether or not he should come back. He's going number 1 overall, people. He just is. He's going number 1 overall. I don't care if it's the Falcons that got it, or the Jets, or the Giants, or Washington. It doesn't matter. The Patriots, it does not matter. Whoever gets the number 1 overall pick is going to select Trevor Lawrence, because he is the best prospect since Andrew Luck, and most people believe he's even better than Andrew Luck. And we all saw what Andrew Luck did with the Colts. First 3 years, 11-5, working with the worst offensive line in football, and of course, much to his demise, at age 30, he ends up retiring. when the Colts finally got it right, when their offensive line was finally good and their defense was finally rounding into form, he couldn't do it anymore. And it's just a shame, because I think if Andrew Luck was on this Colts team right now, they would be a real contender in the AFC. So it's just a shame. Trevor Lawrence, no matter what team gets that pick, they're going to select him number 1 overall. So I question whether or not it's even worth it for him to come back this season post-COVID, because I don't know how it's going to affect him. I really don't. Now, I mentioned it, I think in 2 podcasts ago, something like that. A running back for the Jaguars has been hospitalized twice due to COVID complications. He's done for the season. He's on IR. He is done for the season. He has had too many issues from COVID to play this season. It has affected his body very, very negatively. That's why you gotta be careful. That's why I say mask up. You never know how it's going to affect you. Sure, some other people, they seem fine. They got it, maybe they were asymptomatic, and then nothing really happened. Some people got it, they got sick, and then they just kind of had to recover from it like it was the flu. And then some people got it, and it ravaged their body, and then they died, or they're dealing with complications. Now, maybe for the rest of their life, they might deal with complications until they can fix it, and, if they have the money to fix it, whatever the case may be. With Trevor Lawrence, I don't know how it's going to affect him, so I just wonder, would it be worth him to come back and possibly look terrible? If he comes back and looks like not even 50% of the player he was, is it worth it? And here's why I bring that up. Cam Newton, since coming back from COVID, has not looked the same. He's looked terrible. His Pro Football Focus grade, his QBR, it has dropped ever since he came back from COVID. His first 3 games of the season, I believe, what was it, did he play? He played the first 2 games? I believe the first 3 games of the season. He played, he looked good. Now, his numbers weren't necessarily outstanding, he didn't have any gaudy numbers, any gaudy passing numbers or anything, but the Patriots team looked very formidable. They had a good run game, Cam Newton seemed to have a good rapport with the receivers early on, Edelman was working, N'Keal Harry was working, the running backs were working, it seemed like this team was actually going to be tough, and it seemed like the Patriots were actually going to be a playoff team. Cam Newton then gets COVID. He misses a game, comes back for the next game against Denver. He looked awful. And then he played and he looks awful. And he's just been inconsistent. He hasn't looked the same. So I just wonder, how much did COVID really affect Cam Newton? I haven't seen any reports on if he actually got sick, or if he was asymptomatic, or whatever it is that happened. All I know is he got it, and since he's been back, the New England Patriots have not looked like a playoff team. They've looked like one of the worst, most inconsistent teams in the NFL. And every player is now up for trade, and it's just a mess. So I really do wonder, Trevor Lawrence, he now has it. If he's asymptomatic, if it never actually affects him, and he is able to come back and play, okay, so be it, go ahead and play. But if it actually does affect him, is it worth it for him to play? And even then, right, let's just say he recovers from it, goes back out there, plays a bit. Let's say he gets it again, and this time it's closer to the NFL draft. How is it going to affect him? And what if it then was to actually make him sick? I mean, there's all these questions. And these are the questions we all had going into the season. Is it safe for the kids? Would it be safer for them to be home or be on the campus? I argued it'd be safer for them to be on the campus, with the team and with the protocols. And I still think that was the right choice, but people are getting it. Nick Saban, one day he has it. And he's like, I don't know what happened. I've been following the protocols. I've been social distancing. I've been cleaning my hands. I've been wearing my mask. And then he has it. And it turned out to be false positive, but it can happen just like that. That's why they say, when you're coming home from work, from the store, whatever the case may be, wash your hands. Do not touch your face. Be careful, because you never know where that virus is laying. The virus does have a lifespan. It doesn't stay on a surface forever. But if you come into contact with it while it is still alive, then it's on you. And you need to clean yourself before you end up touching your face, touching your mouth, your eyes. It gets in a cut, wherever. You gotta be careful about it. And I don't want to sound like that guy. I don't want to be that guy, but I do have to say, Trevor Lawrence, I think, should be careful. And I think he needs to be honest with himself. I get it. You want to go out there and play. I used to play sports myself. I wanted to go out there and play with my team, whether it was when I played soccer or when I played baseball. I wanted to go out there and play with my team. I didn't want anything to hold me back. I didn't want to be on the bench. I didn't want to sit on the sideline when I had to get substituted out in soccer for somebody else. I hated it. I wanted to be out there and play. So I get it if Trevor Lawrence is then technically, quote, recovered from COVID. If he no longer tests positive for COVID, he's going to want to play. He's going to be out there with his guys. They have a chance to win another title because it's a good team, and they're going to most likely get in the playoffs. I don't think there's any way they wouldn't not make the playoffs. So, I guess what I'm saying is, Trevor Lawrence needs to probably be just more concerned with his distant future rather than his immediate future. Do not worry about the college season this year. There's a great chance where you might just need to say, hey, I'm about to be the number 1 overall pick. A franchise is going to need me next season to be the savior. And it's probably going to be the Jets. They're going to need me to save them. I need to go play. I need to make sure I'm right. I need to make sure I'm healthy for the draft. And he just might need to go ahead and say, you know, Clemson, I love you. Thank you for 3 years. We accomplished a lot, but later. And he might just need to go to the draft. With that being said, Trevor Lawrence recently was asked about the possibility of him returning to college. And he gave the basic answer. He said, well, you know, I could always return. I could always come back for another season. You never quite know. You know, I could go to the draft, but I could also go back to college. Oh, but the draft sounds nice. But college, but the teammates and the coaches and all that stuff. It's the right answer to give. Let me tell you what I would do if I was Trevor Lawrence. The Jets are going to get the number 1 overall pick. They're just going to. There might be a game that they'll win, but you look at some of the other teams here. The Giants, I think they're going to win at least maybe 3 or 4 more games. I mean, their defense is good enough, and Daniel Jones and the weapons they have are good enough to win some games. I am not completely out on Daniel Jones. I hate his fumble problem. I hate turnovers. But I am not completely out on Daniel Jones. I'm just not. I see his QBR. I see the Pro Football Focus grade. I mean, he is a decent young quarterback who I just think he needs more time. I'm not one of these people who believes, oh, well, if they don't succeed in this amount of time, well, then they need to go. If they don't show flashes in their first season of being elite, they need to go. I'm still not one of those guys. I understand the point of view, but I'm not one of those guys. I'm still a believer that Daniel Jones could be something. But the Giants, I think they're going to win too many games. The Falcons, I think they're going to win too many games. The Jags, they already have 1 win. Are you telling me they're going to stay at 1 win the whole season? Because I don't. I think they will at least get 1 or 2 more. I think that they'll be probably at least a 3-win team. They're a bit worse than I thought they'd be. I thought they'd be a bit better on offense. I thought they'd generate a bit, more points than they do. I thought their defense would be a little bit better. I was wrong. They are, the second, third worst team in the NFL. So I guess it kind of depends. Do you have faith in the Jags? Do you have more faith in the Jets? I don't know. I think the Jags will remain better than the Jets. So the Jets are going to end up drafting Trevor Lawrence. Now, here is what I would do. If you're telling me that the Jets are going to go into next season with Adam Gase, I'm going to do one of 2 things. I am either going to tell the Jets, hey, if you want me, get rid of Adam Gase. And I don't know, get Lincoln Riley, hire Eric Bieniemy, hire Brian Daboll, give me anybody else but Adam Gase, because he is not a motivator, he is not a head coach, I'm not even sure he's an offensive coordinator. People want to give him shine because he was great with Peyton Manning. Woo-hoo! Woo! No, give me Brian Daboll for what he's doing with Josh Allen. Why don't you give me Eric Bieniemy for what he's been able to do with Patrick Mahomes early in his career, right? Patrick Mahomes, we all agree he's super talented, but what Eric Bieniemy's done from an offensive standpoint, what he's been doing with Andy Reid, what they have done to defenses over these past 2-3 seasons is insanity. Give me Eric Bieniemy. Give me somebody else other than Adam Gase. He does nothing creative. He even gave up the play calling with the team. They still didn't look better. But it's not like Adam Gase's offense was blowing everybody away. And I know the Jets don't have great personnel, so some people might want to go back to what he did with Ryan Tannehill. Hey, look what he did with Ryan Tannehill. He took the team to the playoffs his first year there. Ryan Tannehill is actually good. And that Miami defense was still pretty good that year. Xavier Howard was coming on strong. They had a good pass rush. It was a decent linebacking core. Like, that was a pretty decent team. And what it actually turns out is he was holding Ryan Tannehill back. Because since he's gone to Tennessee, he's been a top 10 quarterback. Adam Gase is just not the guy. Now, if the Jets want to be stubborn, and the Jets want to keep him around, then what I would say is I'm not playing for you. Don't draft me. Or if you do draft me, trade me immediately. Do what the Chargers and the Giants did. Swap quarterbacks. Do something. Get rid of me. I don't want to play for you. I don't want to play for that guy. And you know what? I don't think it's not going to get the kind of pushback I think it would in other situations. We see the kind of talent Trevor Lawrence is. And we saw the kind of talent Sam Darnold was. And we've seen what has happened to him with the Jets, and it's not pretty. I'm sure there are going to be some NFL veterans who are going to hate it. I'm sure there are going to be some NFL pundits who hate it. Some Hall of Famers that hate it. I'm sure there's going to be some people in the media who are going to kill Trevor Lawrence for saying it. But you know who's going to understand? Le'Veon Bell. You know who's going to understand? A guy like Geno Smith. You know who's going to understand? A guy like, you could say Leonard Williams, Jamal Adams, McClendon, who just got traded. Any of these players who has managed to get away from this team is going to understand exactly what Trevor Lawrence is saying. You know who would really understand? Sam Darnold. Because Sam Darnold does not like the situation he's in. He does not like Adam Gase. Even though he might say differently, I don't think anyone believes him. Anyone who's smart doesn't believe him. I don't think he likes Adam Gase. I think he wants him gone. I don't think anybody on that team likes Adam Gase. So would any of them realistically blame Trevor Lawrence for not wanting to be there? No. Sam Darnold might not be happy because that means the Jets might actually keep him around because then they won't have a quarterback. But I just think if the Jets really wanted Trevor Lawrence, then they need to do whatever it takes to actually get him. People need to understand this, right? The Jets this season are terrible. I get that. The Jets this season are terrible, but if you go back to like 2010, and you just look at their record, you look at their wins since 2010, they have been a relatively decent team. Not special, not great. They've had a few good seasons. Had a few seasons they went to the AFC Championship game. Had some seasons they had double-digit wins, where they were second in the division, third in the division, where they had 6, 8, 9, 10 wins. I mean, they have been a relatively decent team. It's just that this season, they're so abysmal, and they look so bad under Adam Gase that everyone's just killing the Jets. I think the Jets, as a total landing spot with their GM and everything, I think as a landing spot, it isn't that bad. It's just Adam Gase is the ultimate elephant in the room. And we're just not sure about that situation. We are not sure Adam Gase is the guy or that he even deserves the job. So if the Jets really want Trevor Lawrence, cater to his every whim. If he wants Adam Gase gone, they should want to get rid of Adam Gase in the first place. Especially if he does finish this season with like 1 win or no wins, they should want to get rid of him anyways. But if by the off chance they do keep him around until the draft, and Trevor Lawrence tells them, you want me, get rid of him, they should do it, hire whatever guy he wants, or at least just hire a better option. Let's just go with that. Let's just hire a better option and move forward. This kid, his talent, Andrew Luck, but even better, he deserves it. Surround him with whatever you can to make him successful. Next season, there is a chance you could have the best quarterback in that division. Now, I would probably like Josh Allen more than I'd like Trevor Lawrence just because Josh Allen has the experience of the NFL. I've seen how he's been playing this season. I like Josh Allen. I think he's good. I think he's going to be really good moving forward. Has probably the strongest arm in the NFL. I think that he would still be the best quarterback in the division, but you're telling me if they can surround him with the right pieces, if they can really cater an offense to him and help him learn and build in the NFL, are you going to tell me that like in the next 2-3 seasons, he wouldn't be the best quarterback in the AFC East? That the Jets could not own the division? We don't know what the Dolphins are going to be. We do not know what the Patriots are going to be. We just don't. The Jets, of course we don't know what they're going to be, but if they get that guy, that's going to go a long way into cementing their future as a contender in the AFC. It's all just going to fall on them to actually help the kid be successful. Anyways, coming up next, the Patriots are reportedly fielding trades for everybody. I think they should, and I think there is a team or two that should be taking this exact same approach. We'll talk about that coming up next. And my final topic of the day, we're going to look back at the Panthers-Falcons game on Thursday Night Football, and I'm going to look at both these teams, how they are doing this season, kind of their teams as a whole, where they were supposed to be, and moving forward. That coming up, final topic of the day.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. Last segment talked about Trevor Lawrence and what I think he should do since he has come down with COVID. If I was Trevor Lawrence, I would forego the remainder of this college football season and I would declare for the draft. And then as it pertains to teams drafting him, again, when it comes to the Jets, since they are most likely going to win the number 1 overall pick, I would tell them, I will come to your team if you fire Adam Gase. And if they don't fire Adam Gase, I would not play for them. I don't know necessarily if I would go back to college and risk an injury and risk my draft stock falling, but I would maybe just say, okay, fine, if you're going to draft me, then just know I'm not going to play, and you can go ahead and trade me then. I would not want to play under Adam Gase. If they have another head coach, sure. Alright, we can talk, but under Adam Gase, I'm just not about it. So speaking of AFC East teams, this conference in general has just completely flipped itself upside down. The Bills are atop at 6-2. In second place are the Miami Dolphins, who just won their first start with Tua, who didn't do much, but they ended up beating the Rams and beating them pretty handedly. They're 4-3, and in third place is the New England Patriots, now at 2-5. Sean McDermott in his career had never beaten New England. Last year came close. I think they had a game that finished like 17-10, and they had like a late touchdown pass, and it seemed like maybe they could win it. Their defense was the thing that was keeping them in all these games, but the thing was, Josh Allen was terrible, and Bill Belichick, he confuses young quarterbacks to begin with, but when you're a young quarterback who also just isn't accurate in general, it's a recipe for disaster. In this game, Josh Allen still wasn't much better. He was 11 of 18 for 154 yards, no touchdowns, a pick. He had 23 yards rushing on 10 carries and a touchdown. The place that they really dominated the game was in the run game. So even then, it still wasn't Josh Allen, but it was it was the Patriots' inability to stop them. And when it comes to Cam Newton, again, just kind of a meh day, really. And even the running game, people talk about, well, they had over 100 yards. Yeah, sure. Like 50 of those yards came on one run from Harris. Other than that, once again, it was Cam Newton who was basically their run game. He finished with 15 of 25 for 174 yards, no touchdowns, no picks, had the game-ending fumble, had a rushing touchdown. It was a really, really poor performance. The Patriots this year have to be one of the most disappointing teams in the NFL. I mean, they really do. And I've kind of thought about, I might do a segment in my next podcast where I go through the whole league and I look at every team's season and I name whether or not their season is successful so far, whether it's been a disappointment or whether it's kind of stagnant. I've thought about doing it. I might do it. Probably going to do it. We'll wait and we'll see. But when it comes to New England, I would say their season thus far has been so disappointing. And it's kind of shocking, right? Because going into the season, we looked at the Patriots and we said, well, I mean, there's no Tom Brady and all these opt-outs. There's no Gronk. Their wide receiving core is bare. Who is their starting quarterback? Is it going to be Hoyer? Is it going to be Stidham? Oh, it's going to be Stidham? Well, this is just sad. This is going to be a really blah season. This is going to have to be Bill Belichick's best coaching performance ever. And then they signed Cam Newton, and then they started off the season looking really good. People got their expectations up again. People thought they'd be really good. And since Cam Newton got COVID, he has no touchdown passes, and he's been a turnover machine, and he's been inaccurate, and he just hasn't looked the same. Against the Bills, I feel like that is the best I have seen Cam Newton over the last 3 games, and it's not saying much. As for the Bills, great win. A great team win, a great hard-fought win. Sean McDermott, he said he was very, very emotional after the win. Josh Allen finally got his victory. He finally got his victory. And the Bills right now are in sole possession of first place in the AFC East. I don't think the Dolphins are going to be much contenders. I don't... If you're going to tell me that every single week the Dolphins are going to be able to force 4 turnovers and score on defense and score on special teams and offense, then okay, they're probably going to win. I think that game against the Rams was more a product of Brian Flores knowing how to shut down Sean McVay's offense. That's what I think, at least. But more to the point, the New England Patriots this season are just not good. They're third in their division. The only team they are better than in their division is the Jets, and it's not saying much. Could they have a chance to finish the season with a better record than the Dolphins? They could. Especially if Tua continues to play that way, and I'll talk about Tua a bit more in my next podcast. If Tua continues to play like that, then okay, the Patriots might be able to catch him. I can't wait to see the Dolphins and the Patriots match up again. I don't know when they do. I can't wait to see that again because I really want to see what Tua does against Bill Belichick. I think that might be the game where we really see, does Belichick still have his fastball? Or is this kind of or do they really need to reboot? But the New England Patriots, more to get to the point of this segment, the New England Patriots have made it known every single player on their team is available for trade. So if you want to trade for Cam Newton, you could. If you wanted to trade for one of their really good offensive linemen, realistically you could. Would they maybe say no? Maybe. But if the price was right, they say every player does have a price, you could realistically trade for them. That's why even when I hear like J.J. Watt from the Texans isn't available, I still think to myself, I don't know, if a team offered you like 2 first-round picks for a 30-year-old defensive lineman who's making a lot of money, are you really going to say no to that? If you did say no to that, I would just say that's really bad business. But more to the point with the Patriots, even Stephon Gilmore is available for trade. If I was a team, I would do my best. If I was a team that felt like they could compete this season, who's just a cornerback away, who's just one defensive piece away from being a real contender, I'd trade for him. He's a good player. He's the reigning defensive player of the year. And there's a lot of people who don't understand it. They look at it and they say, why would the Patriots want to trade their best player away? He's easily the best player on defense. Yes, he's making a lot of money, but he's worth it. He just won defensive player of the year. Here's the problem. New England, whether they announce it or not, are in a rebuild mode. This is a rebuilding team. This team was not supposed to be a contender this year. At the beginning of the season, through the first 3 games, they tricked people into believing they were kind of ahead of schedule. And hey, maybe this team actually isn't that bad. Maybe Tom Brady was more the problem. No, what we have seen is that Tom Brady is still good. And when you surround him with NFL quality players, he's still excellent. And Cam Newton is now throwing to these same weapons. And whether COVID is affecting him or not, I think it is. I think the after effects are still affecting him. He's not looking good with this team. He was looking good for a bit. He's had this season one really good passing performance, and it came against the Seattle Seahawks, and we all know what's wrong with their defense. They can't defend a nosebleed. They can't stop anything. So I don't know how much stock to put into it. The Patriots kind of tricked people at the beginning of the year, and now at this point we know what they are. They're a bad football team. They're not good anywhere. They're not really good on defense. They're not really good on offense. Name the area of the team that New England is outstanding in. Name the area. They're not even good at protecting the football anymore. They used to be good at it. They're not even good at that anymore. This team really has just kind of fallen apart, and whether it is because of COVID or the opt-outs are finally getting to them, the strength of their schedule is finally getting to them, who knows? They just haven't looked good. They're one of the worst teams in the league, one of the worst teams in the AFC, one of the worst teams in their own division, and they seem like they need to be in a full reboot mode. They really do. I don't think Cam Newton's going to be there for the long term. I don't think they're going to re-sign him. I think this is a one and done year deal. And I think Cam Newton will get a contract somewhere else. I think he will get an offer from another team. I think he has shown enough this season from a maturity standpoint, from his work ethic, from what he's been doing. I think he has shown enough to make another team, like maybe the Bears, maybe the Colts, one of these teams that have really good rosters, might make them go, alright, let's take a shot on him. Let's take a shot on Cam Newton. I think there's other quarterbacks that might get picked before him to maybe even trade for, but that's just a thought I have. But I think this is a really, really good standpoint for New England to take. Everybody is for sale. All you have to do is give us the right offer. I think the Cowboys should take this exact same offer. What are some moves they've made so far? They went ahead and they traded away Everson Griffin. Okay, so you gave him to Detroit for like a 6th-round pick. Okay, cool. And they cut Dontari Poe. And they cut Daryl Worley. And apparently Seattle offered, they called in to check on the availability of Aldon Smith. Dallas said, no, we're not interested. No, we're actually looking to re-sign Aldon Smith. Now, I don't know where they're getting all this money from. Aldon Smith has kind of been like their best pass rusher this season. Pro Football Focus says that DeMarcus Lawrence, the last time I think heading into this week of football, they had DeMarcus Lawrence graded as a top 5 defensive lineman, which was kind of interesting. I'm going to assume they're taking into account his tackling and his playing the run and all that stuff. I'm going to assume that's really where they're grading him positively in, because when it comes to getting pressure on the quarterback and when it comes to sacks, his production has been little to nothing. I think if I was Dallas, I wouldn't. I mean, what are they doing? By trading away Everson Griffin and cutting Dontari Poe and Daryl Worley, I mean, what are you really saying to the team? At least in my mind, you're not really saying anything. The only thing that these kind of moves would scream to me is we made a mistake. That's really all it says to me. But if you're trying to send a message to the team, you need to hit the team more where it hurts. You would need to trade and or cut, and they will not cut these players, but they would need to trade a guy like Jalen Smith. They would need to trade a guy like DeMarcus Lawrence. They would need to trade one of these players that they gave big money to. Sorry if you heard that, it was my phone. They would need to trade one of these players that they gave big money to, that's been a Cowboy for a few seasons, that was drafted by the team, that has relationships with all the players on this team. You would need to trade them if you really wanted to send a message. And even then, guys, let's be honest about Dallas. Can we really look at this team? They are in rebuild mode. And I think Dak Prescott, in his absence of Dallas, I think he has made so much money. Because Dallas has not looked great. It has been inconsistent to borderline inept. Maybe not even borderline. It has been inconsistent to inept, to the point where the defense is just playing the entire game and the offense can't do anything. They're turning the ball over. It doesn't seem like anyone has any fight. I mean, if this team really wants to make a move, man, trade Amari Cooper. When they gave Amari Cooper this $20 million deal, I looked at it and I said to myself, why? I understand that he's a really good person. He's great in the locker room. People seem to really like Amari Cooper. He, for all of his talent, I don't feel like he shows up enough. And I don't know, maybe it's the team's fault, maybe the team isn't scheming him enough, maybe they're not running enough plays for him, I have no idea what it is, but the narrative on Amari Cooper last year was he played 8 games a year. All the Dallas home games. All the other games, he didn't really seem to show up. He was calling himself out of the game. He's on the sideline during Dallas's most important play during a game. I mean, it just seemed like he wasn't into it. But Dallas felt like they needed to pay him because they gave Oakland the first round pick. At least I think it was a first round pick. They gave Oakland a pick for him, and he came to Dallas, and he instantly kind of made that Dallas offense pop, and it looked good. It looked like he and Dak had an instant rapport. And then after that, he was here, and he was gone, and he was here, and he was gone. They paid him $20 million. I look at their roster, I look at their receivers, and I see they got Michael Gallup. I see they got CeeDee Lamb. I see they got this dude named Wilson. I don't remember his first name now, but they got this fourth receiver who's really fast, and who's actually pretty decent when they get him the football. If you're telling me this team's got 4 good receivers, and they don't want to trade Michael Gallup, by all the reports, they don't want to trade Michael Gallup, why not trade Amari Cooper? Why not? That's $20 million on your cap book. And by all accounts, it seems like Dallas still really wants to pay Dak Prescott. Guys, why don't you remove one of the $20 million players you have that isn't performing? Jalen Smith has been one of the most underperforming players this season for his contract. DeMarcus Lawrence has been one of the most underperforming players in the whole league for his contract. And it's the same thing for Amari Cooper. I get it. The offensive line is hurt, and your starting tight end got hurt, and your starting quarterback got hurt, and Ezekiel Elliott, another guy you paid a bunch of money to, hasn't looked the same. I get that. But man, you gotta send the message, and Dallas needs to just admit they are rebuilding. Because again, I will ask you, name one thing this team is really good at. Okay, with Dak Prescott then, they're really good at offense. In the second half. When they're down by 20. Oh, then their offense turns it on. But when it's the first quarter, when it's the second quarter, and the game isn't within reach, their offense is basically nowhere to be found. And people can go ahead and blame whoever they want. I don't even know who I would blame. But what I do know watching Dallas this season, even given the injuries, all of that, they should be taking the New England model, which is you trade any player that a team offers you adequate compensation for. If Seattle goes to Dallas and says, hey, we will give you a first round pick and a second round pick and maybe a fourth in exchange for DeMarcus Lawrence, do it. Why not? Why not go ahead and trade him? You got Aldon Smith. Let him be your bookend pass rusher. Because why are you paying DeMarcus Lawrence all this money? If another team wants to come to you and says, hey, we'll give you a first round pick for Jalen Smith, why not go ahead and trade him? He's been at the heart of so many big plays, and he has so many plays this season where his effort has been terrible. Why would you keep these players on your team? You have other people you need to pay. Dak Prescott, you're going to need to pay, and his value has only gone up. Even though it does really concern me that the offense is this bad without Dak, and yet with Dak, they still couldn't win games. That really worries me about this team. It really does concern me. Like, I don't understand it. Their offense is so much worse. They're still losing these games. With Dak Prescott, their offense is noticeably better. And yet they still couldn't win games. Like, why? And I get it, their defense isn't good. That's why they needed to draft defense. They didn't need to draft CeeDee Lamb. But since they drafted CeeDee Lamb, and you've got this young receiving core, you might as well move off of Amari Cooper. You might as well move off of Michael Gallup, who's up for a contract after the season. Do something. Don't just stand pat. Don't just stand pat with Mike McCarthy even. And Nolan, their defensive coordinator, don't stand pat. Move off of some of these guys. Jerry Jones needs to admit he made a mistake. And I just don't think he's going to do it. Because he's proud. And he's an optimist. So I don't think he's going to admit it, but I think it'd be the right decision to do so. Dallas and New England, both just, I don't, they're both underachieving teams. I mean, the Dallas had so much hype around them and all the weapons they have and the defense returning and the new head coach, new defensive coordinator, all the hype around this team, and they're terrible. And then New England, it's the expectations of Bill Belichick and what he's done over the last 20 years with New England. And again, they're just bad. 2020. I've said it so many times. 2020. This is a crazy year. Anyways, coming up next, we're going to look at the NFC South, talk about the Falcons and the Panthers moving forward, looking at their game on Thursday Night Football. Final topic of the day. Thank you for tuning in.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. Last segment talked about the New England Patriots and how they have everybody available for trade, and how I think that the Cowboys should follow the same exact method, as well as the Texans, at least when it comes to JJ Watt, right? There's even a few other teams, right? The Washington football team. Trade Kerrigan. He's older, he's expensive. Why keep him on the team? He wants to trade, go ahead and trade him. I just think teams should be more willing, not only to part with older, expensive players, but they should be willing to do so in even younger players if they are clearly rebuilding and these players aren't playing like the guys that you paid them to be. Maybe it's Nolan. I have no clue. Maybe it's all Nolan's fault, because DeMarcus Lawrence last season was decent. He was at least better than he was this year. When it comes to Jalen Smith, he kind of tailed off last year along with Van Der Esch, and this season it has been more of the same. I just think the Cowboys are in a rebuild, and they should go ahead and admit it to themselves. Jerry Jones needs to admit that he was wrong. Speaking of rebuilding teams, though, let's go to the NFC South. So the NFC South this season has been nothing like I thought it would be. Nothing like I thought it would be. I thought the Saints would firmly be in first place. I thought second place would be the Buccaneers, because I thought they had too much talent to not be the team in second place. And when it came to the Panthers and the Falcons, I just kind of looked at them and I said, I mean, the Panthers, their defense is terrible, and it's a new head coach, it's a rookie head coach, and there's no training camp, no OT, no nothing, and Teddy Bridgewater, he's nice, he's okay, he's an accurate passer, but I don't really look at him as a franchise quarterback. And when it came to Atlanta, I just said, yeah, they're Atlanta. They'll probably finish third. They're going to finish somewhere around 500. They have too much talent on offense to not at least win a couple games. It's the defense that's the problem. But all in all, I thought they'd probably finish like third. At the moment, they're in last place. And so I guess let's kind of break this down, right? So they played on Thursday Night Football, and I've been looking at the Panthers, looking at the Falcons. Let's talk about the Panthers for a second. Heading into this season, what was the narrative about the Panthers? They are rebuilding. They fired their head coach. They fired their quarterback. Their defense is in shambles. They don't really have an outstanding player anywhere. Luke Kuechly is gone, and the defense wasn't good last year, and the offense wasn't really good last year. They had Kyle Allen for the majority of the season, and it seemed like it was going to be a rebuilding team. They have a new head coach. They signed a new quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater, who's a big redemption story. They have Christian McCaffrey. They do have DJ Moore, and they do have Robbie Anderson, who they grabbed in free agency, and that wide receiver combo has been outstanding. I think it's probably been one of the best in the league. Both receivers are in the top 10 for receiving yards alone, so go ahead and make of that what you will. I would probably still take I'd take the combo of DK and Lockett over them, but there aren't many combos at receiver who have been more productive and better than them. When I look at the Panthers as a whole, right, they lost to the Falcons, it is what it is. But when I look at the Panthers as a whole, I think they are in a good rebuilding situation. Let's be honest about their season so far. The only game in which the Panthers looked overwhelmed in, the only game in which the Panthers truly did not look competitive in, was against the Bucs. Other than that, they weren't great against the Bears, but they didn't look overwhelmed. They just didn't look good. Otherwise, they've been competitive in every single game. And I think what I did, I got stuck on the notion that Teddy Bridgewater wasn't very good. I got stuck on him from his first 2 years in the league. Keep this in mind about Teddy Bridgewater in his first 2 seasons in the league as the full-time starter of the Minnesota Vikings. He had thrown 6,000 yards, so 3,000 yards a season. That's not great. He had 28 passing touchdowns to 21 interceptions and 4 rushing touchdowns in 2 seasons. And this is a guy who, coming out of college, didn't have really a great arm, didn't have outstanding mobility. The thing that he had was he was really accurate. He was historically accurate, and people thought it could translate. In the first 2 seasons, it didn't really translate in his numbers, right? That was an Adrian Peterson-led team. It was a defensively led team, and Teddy Bridgewater looked like a game manager who was just accurate. And even then, his accuracy, it wasn't outstanding. It was kind of average. He was just an average, below average quarterback. So I got stuck on that. Cause then you have to keep in mind, he then gets injured, he's then rehabbing, then he's on the bench, and then finally he goes to the Saints, and they actually needed him when Drew Brees got injured, so we got to play 5 games, he went undefeated, had only 1 game where he looked like a true elite NFL quarterback. He had 1 game where he threw over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns and no picks and had a great completion percentage and had a great QBR, everything. All the other games, he was really just a game manager. All of his other games, it was the Saints' defense and their run game that was really winning the game for them. It was not Teddy Bridgewater. He had 1 game where you can really say, he uplifted and really led his team to victory. And then he goes to the Panthers on a big deal, and congrats to him. But then I looked at that signing and I said, okay, so he's going to go to a team that wasn't good last year. They have a terrible defense. They've got some good pieces on offense, but the offensive line isn't great. And they're going to have a new head coach. So, and he's going to be a rookie head coach too, a rookie NFL head coach. So I'm like, how is this supposed to look? Am I supposed to be amped about them? This team is probably going to be one of the 10 worst teams in the league. I still think they could finish as one of the 10 worst, but they are better than I thought they'd be. When you look at where they rank in the league across the stat sheet, they rank kind of in the middle of everything. They are legitimately a blah team. They don't do anything outstanding. They don't do anything terribly. They are a blah team. What are they now? They're 3-5? I still think they're probably going to finish at the bottom of their division. They'll probably still finish this season as one of the worst teams in the league, but this has been an outstanding first year for Matt Rule. I think this team has greatly overachieved. Their schedule hasn't exactly been murderer's row, right? They haven't faced the Seahawks, and they haven't faced the Packers, and they haven't faced the Steelers. They faced the Bucs and the Bears. They lost to both of those teams. Which those are probably the 2 best teams that they have faced. And then they just lost to Atlanta, a team that has just been every single week seems to give it up. But when I look at the Panthers as a whole, I think they're a good rebuilding team, and they're in a really good place. I think they might have their head coach of the future, and I think that they could probably, realistically, build around Teddy Bridgewater and form a really good team. Now, will they be a Super Bowl contender? No clue. But I think they could put together a really good competitive team. Hell, they're already competitive this season. And when it comes to Atlanta, Matt Ryan is one of the most underrated quarterbacks I've ever seen. Since he's been drafted to the NFL, Matt Ryan has been one of the most consistent and one of the best pure passers in the NFL. He's never really been a mobile threat, but he has always been a threat to throw the football. He's had a better than average arm. He can make all the throws. He's very accurate. And Atlanta has done a great job of utilizing him because they've always managed to surround him with good talent, whether it be at tight end or at receiver or at running back. They've always been able to give him weapons. And whether it's because of their defense, or because they choke, or because they just give up leads, the mentality of the team, they've never been able to fully take advantage of it. But over the last 10 years, since 2010, they have won 113 games out of a possible 192. So out of 192 games, you win 113 of them, multiple double-digit win seasons, and their other seasons, it's not like they're going 2-14. I think they've had maybe 2 4-12 seasons. Other than that, they hover around 500. It's 6-10. It's 7-9. It's 8-8. That's where the team has been. They've been very, very consistent. They've never really been, over the last 10 years, a god-awful team. The 4-12 years, yes, I think there's either 1 or 2 of them. Other than that, they've been very, very consistent. They've had dominant Hall of Fame level players with, or at least with Hall of Fame talent. Julio Jones, I think, will be a Hall of Famer. And he's one of the best receivers I've ever seen in my life. Through his career span, 10, 11 years, he is second to Jerry Rice in receiving yards through those years. And this is while he has missed games because he is such a physical receiver. He has been a bit nicked up in his career. He's missed games. He's still second. It's crazy. And now you look at the team this year. Matt Ryan is still playing pretty damn good football. Julio Jones, still one of the best receivers in the league. And this team has figured out every which way to lose. Now their defense still isn't great. Next to the Seattle, it was second in the NFL when it comes to historically horrible defenses. Seattle was first, they were second. So their defense isn't great, but they have figured out every which way to lose games. They didn't jump on an onside kick. They gave up a lead to Nick Foles. They scored too quickly against the Lions. And even though I really do blame Atlanta's defense on that, you're telling me you're gonna make Matt Stafford basically drive the length of the field. All you need to do is hold them. What they do, have one timeout, a minute left? This is the Lions we're talking about. This isn't Russell Wilson. This isn't Mahomes. This isn't Brady. This is Stafford. And you can't hold them? So I don't know if I want to put that all on the offense, but I get it. They needed to run out clock. They needed to make the Lions waste the timeout. They didn't. It is what it is. It's been a mess. But when I look at this team, these two teams moving forward, and I look at the division, let's take a real big look at this division. The Saints. This is their last year, I think, at least for a bit, of being real contenders. Next season, I have no clue what they're going to do at quarterback. Will they go forward with Taysom Hill? Or will they maybe surprise everybody? And could they make a trade for like Sam Darnold? I don't know what this team's going to do, but even this season, I don't look at the Saints as real contenders. Their record is one thing. I don't look at them as contenders. I think Drew Brees is past his prime. I don't think Drew Brees is very good anymore. He doesn't have the arm. He looks tired. He has to javelin run it. Or javelin throw it to get that ball deep. It just hasn't looked pretty. And maybe it's because Michael Thomas isn't playing, but if you need Michael Thomas that much to make this offense work, I have way more questions about this offense than Drew Brees. And when it comes to the Buccaneers, it's this year, and it's next year, and what happens after that? Who's the quarterback? What's the culture of the team going to look like? Is Brady going to surprise everyone and play another year? I have no idea. Realistically, this division is going to be open for grabs in the next 2 to 3 years. It will be completely open. Like I said, the Saints next season, I think they're going to take a step back because Drew Brees won't be there, and I don't know who their starter is going to be. The Buccaneers, Brady will still be there. The majority of the team is still going to be there, so they will be able to run it back. Atlanta, the Panthers, they are going to need to rebuild. They're going to need to restock. They're going to need to get draft picks, draft well, develop their players, get that. After that year, I think this division will be wide open, and there is a real possibility that Teddy Bridgewater is the only remaining starting quarterback there from this season. There's a realistic chance Tom Brady's gone, Drew Brees will be gone, and Matt Ryan, he could get traded somewhere else. I don't think he's going to retire. I think he still has football left. I think he could get traded by then. Teddy Bridgewater is the only dude that I believe could still realistically be there from this season. Other than that, the Buccaneers, they're going to need to find a new quarterback. The Saints are going to need a new quarterback. And so will Atlanta. And I don't know if it's going to happen in this draft because I don't think any of these teams are going to get top 5 picks or even be in position to draft a quarterback unless they do trade up. That's always a possibility. But just based off of their picks alone, I don't think these guys will be in the top 5 to be able to grab Trevor Lawrence or Trey Lance or Justin Fields. I don't think it's going to happen. And I guess this is kind of like that fear, right? When you have an older quarterback and when you've been hanging on to them and when you haven't been developing guys, is there the chance that, all of a sudden you're kind of screwed? All of a sudden you have this talent on the team at all these other places, but you don't have the trigger man. You don't have the quarterback anymore. Now, the good news for these teams is this. Good quarterbacks seem to be coming out every single draft. Somebody in that draft, more often than not, is going to hit at this point. Josh Allen, we thought he was a bust. All of a sudden, he's a legit quarterback. Lamar Jackson, would he be successful? He actually is still successful. I'll talk about him a little bit more in my next podcast, but he is still successful. He is still an NFL quarterback. Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, they might not be the guy to carry the team, but they can be an NFL starting quarterback. So I think they can find their guys still. If I had to pick a franchise that I believe in the next 2 seasons will be the most successful, I'd probably lean with the Saints just because of recency bias. I like Sean Payton. I really like the talent on the team. I think they have a lot of good young players that, a good offensive line. Kamara, Thomas, Sanders is still there. Cook is still there. The defense has a bunch of young pieces that still haven't even been paid yet, that are gonna need to get paid and I think will get paid. So I think if anything, I would probably pick the Saints. But, I guess there's the chance Tom Brady just blows everybody away and says, I'm coming back for my 50th year. You never quite know. But I look at the Panthers this season, I think they are ahead of schedule. I think they have some really good young talent on this team. Matt Rule looks like he can coach. I think they are ahead of schedule. Atlanta, they need to get the head coach right and then figure out what are they going to do with Matt Ryan. He still has a big cap hit, so I don't think they'll move on from him this next season, but maybe the next season they'd move off of him. I don't really know. Maybe they should even think about moving Julio Jones. He's older, he's more expensive, and though he is still good, I think you could get a really good pick for him. So maybe you move on from Julio Jones. When it comes to the Saints, I just need to know what they're going to do at quarterback. The roster is there. I just need to know what they're going to do at quarterback, and I think they need to do a little bit of rebuilding on defense. And as for the Buccaneers, as long as they have Brady there and they have this talent there, they are going to be a strong contender. But Brady only signed a 2-year deal. Giselle does want him home more and wants him to do more. That's been documented. The letter is out there. So I don't know. Will he come back for a 3rd year with Tampa? Will he kind of surprise everybody? Maybe. What kind of quarterback will he be at that point? I have no idea, but I have no reason to believe he'd look any different than he does now. Maybe a bit slower, but I can't imagine anything else is going to be different. This division's going to be wide open, I think. And I am very, very excited to see it. It's really, really crazy. Football, the parity in football is so cool. Because one year, there can be the Raiders. One year, they're 12-4. The next year, they are one of the worst teams in the NFL. Jacksonville, one year they're 10-6. AFC Championship game, next season, terrible. Atlanta, one year, Super Bowl, best offense in the league. 2 years later, they're 3rd in their division, and they're below 500. It is just beautiful. It's really beautiful, right? There's no Golden States. There's no Cleveland Cavaliers, no 4P. There's none of that. That kind of stuff just doesn't happen in the NFL. Every single year there's parity, there's a shocking team, there's disappointing teams, there's fringe teams, there's a trade to be made everywhere to make a team all of a sudden go over the top. I love football. I love football, and though the season has been kind of wonky with COVID, I'm so happy that this game is being played. Selfishly, I'm happy the game is being played, and I'm happy I get to come on here and talk about it with you guys. Anyways, thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us out. Also, if you can, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.